Hello, everybody. That's our new commercial, and every time I watch it, I'm like, ooh, it's slick.
It's very fun. I was enjoying it.
Thank you. So I'm Kathy Mattice. I'm here with Nancy Erickson. Welcome to Culture Forward. So Nancy is the co-founder and CEO of Total Package HR, and she absolutely provides comprehensive workforce management. We have worked together on some clients, and I always tell you you're my idol. I'm a big fan. I've watched you build a pretty great business. So I'm so happy that you made time for little old me.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. You're too kind. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, let's just dive in. So, Nancy and I are different in that I'm more OD or regional development and culture strategy, and Nancy is legit HR. That's what you've been doing, and you have a great nationwide team that does that. So we look at things a little differently. I'm curious, with your clients coming to you needing HR services, like what's driving them to that first? And I would guess a lot of times they're pulled in a lot of different directions and don't really know what they're supposed to be focusing on. So how do you help them figure that out?
Well, they come to us for a lot of different reasons. So a lot of times they are unfortunately already in pain, meaning they, waited too long to get the advice and counsel on how to, do the basics of HR and payroll. So that's a lot of the theme. We do enjoy when clients are more proactive and they're growing their business and they know that, as they hire employees, there's things that they don't know. They don't know what it is, but they know that they don't know and they don't want to be in pain. And maybe that's because they've ran a business before where they've already experienced that, or they're just wise enough, not just, but they're wise enough to know better. So yeah, they come to us for different reasons, but at the core of it is, I want to take care of my people. I want to protect my business. I want to balance all the interests. And I feel like it's almost impossible and I'm scared and I don't know what to do.
Yeah. How does HR, just in general, maybe just advice for any HR professional, being pulled into meetings because of a fire, they've got compliance things they got to work on, maybe somebody's talking about exiting, seems like there's always urgency. How does HR really prioritize what the most important thing is? And what, in your mind, what's the most important thing if somebody's got, 8 hours to accomplish a whole bunch of things? What would be the thing they should do first?
I'm going to give you an HR answer. It depends.
Yeah. Okay.
It depends.
Great.
So, I think, if there's an HR professional listening and they're, figuring out how to be an HR professional, especially, right? If you've been around the block a few times, you tend to know how to balance, although everybody could use some tips and tricks. But, it's really important to understand what HR means to the company first. Because HR is a spectrum, which, as you alluded to when we started, and some people view HR as very fundamental. I don't want to get sued. It's heavy. It's compliance, and others view it more as culture and employee relations. And it's all true, but there's a spectrum. So, what does it mean to the company? What stage is the company that you're supporting in? And that will help drive to some degree. There's days that you have really amazing plans to work on your projects, whether it be your handbook or your succession planning program or a new competency matrix for career pathing. And somebody, comes in and says, hey, I have a harassment complaint to drop on your desk. Well, guess what's the priority today? That harassment complaint. But other times people walk in and they feel like they have a harassment complaint and they don't. And so understanding how to receive that, triage it appropriately and not let it derail your plans is also important, because in my experience, most of the time people bring heavy things. They're heavy to them, but we can help them work through them. They're not always the textbook or legally defined extremity.
Yeah. I feel like I think that, yes, there's a spectrum, but I feel like I only ever meet people on one side or the other. You and I are a great example. You're one side, on the other. Does it make sense for, and maybe anybody who's listening who's maybe newer to HR, or even somebody who's been doing it a long time, is there value to especially if you're the only person doing HR to really kind of become an expert on both sides, if you will? Or is that just two different people entirely? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't know that I'm right in my opinion on this, but I'll give you my opinion.
Yes, please.
I think that people often think, like, if you want to talk about the culture side of the house, you in HR are part of managing the culture, but you are not responsible for it. And so if you want to specialize in that area, I think that it's almost HR adjacent because you're helping the leadership team set the culture and manage it. So that there's a place for you, but you don't need to learn necessarily all the facets of HR because that is, again, I think it's adjacent. It's not HR. Anybody who thinks HR, if anybody's listening and your boss comes to you and says, you need to fix my culture, you need to hold a mirror up to them. That is not HR's responsibility. That is top down. We as business owners are responsible. I thought I heard a cat. Yeah.
There's a hammock up there and she does that sometimes. Anyway.
I lock the dogs out. Usually they'd be barking in here. Okay. And then the other end of the spectrum is, I say that I start more on the other end of the spectrum with compliance and fundamentals, but you can't yes, I guess if you work for a large enough company, you can just stay in that lane. But as a generalist, it does work up the spectrum. But I do believe that if you're going to be a solid HR professional, especially in a small, medium-sized business, you need to understand a little bit of all of it. You need to be a generalist. There are places for you to be specialized. Yeah. And there's organizations that are large enough to have specialists. So if you're interested in that, that's great. But if you're going to work for a small, medium-sized business, which is primarily what we have here in our hometown of San Diego, but not exclusive to us, right? You need to be a generalist. You need to understand how to balance all of the hats that you wear. It is a very hard job and it is very hard to do it correctly.
Yeah. I feel like I come across a lot of internal HR folks who are really burnt out. I mean, I do webinars and people kind of say, this is great. My leader will never let me implement this stuff. Or I've just decided to keep quiet with my ideas because they never say yes to any of them. And so I feel like there's this HR burnout pandemic beyond just everybody we're all burned out on some level, but it seems that HR is really sort of just throwing their hands up going, I guess I'm just going to do compliance because they don't seem to take me in. But as a consultant, I feel like as an external consultant, you probably get, you still might get no and pushback, but you probably get more, yes, that's a good idea, we should do that because you're external. What advice do you have for those internal people to keep sort of pushing and get their ideas heard?
Well, I think a lot of times the people that are in HR are mismatched. So crazy statement here. Okay. And I think that people go into HR for more of a social work, help people, and you can do that. And I believe you can help somebody in anything that you do in life, any job that you have, anything, right? But HR is not, it's not that this is a business function. And so you need to be able to speak to business owners. You need to be able to speak to entrepreneurs. You need to be able to understand, well, that's a really fabulous idea. It doesn't work here right now, or for this owner, or for this reason. So maybe you can take a piece of that and meet somewhere in the middle of like, hey, I want to grow you. I want to help you evolve, business owner, boss, right? When it's your boss, it's harder. To your point, it's easier for me as a consultant to say these things, but I wasn't always a consultant. So I know that you can be an employee and move the needle. But you have to make sure, again, all roads back to what is the business there for? What's their vision? What's their mission? What's their culture? And if you're trying to, you have these ideas that are not really what the business is interested in, or the season isn't ready for, then you have a couple things to do. You find a place that is ready for that and is ready for those ideas, or you find a way to be creative, to take baby steps. And you got to speak business. You got to speak to, the entrepreneurial mind, which does not like rules and rigidity. And typically HR, that's my favorite part of this job is taking, I'm one, so I can say this, a crazy entrepreneur who's brilliant and has these very cool visions and is creating something new and different. That's what entrepreneurs do, right? They don't just go and copy what everybody else has done. Yeah. And help them see that HR can help their business and it doesn't have to be the fun police or the camp counselor or all the things that have given our profession this like bad reputation. Like, don't be those people. Be creative, be nimble, be decisive.
I love that. Be creative, be nimble, be decisive. We're putting that on the wall.
Like that?
I did. Here's an example. Well, okay, so I guess I'm pushing back or just hear your thoughts. Yes, to everything you just said. And I also think there's a chicken egg problem here because your CEO is like, when you're internal, that the boss is likely to put you in a box as a business function who's kind of just doing the admin stuff. And like I'm in some Facebook groups I'm on Facebook in groups. And I saw, for example, the other day, someone posted that she was new to HR and she was 6 weeks in to her role. And someone had come to her and said, I'd really like to meet with you and talk to you about some of the things that I've observed. And her thing did not scream to me like compliance issue, everything's broken. Seemed somebody wanted to just share how they were feeling about some things. And every comment, get it, make sure you write the notes. And if there's an investigation, and they just all went to that. And I was like, you're all wrong. Use this as a time to just build trust with this person. And then, once you have the conversation, you can, maybe it is an investigation, I don't know, but why are we all jumping to that? So I would suspect all of those who said that sort of have been trained or bitten, in the butt in the past because they didn't take something too serious. I don't know. So I don't know if it's even a question, just this like chicken egg of like HR seems to want to be strategic, but they seem to not be able to get there.
No, this is great. It's all those things. So.
I think you're frozen a little bit.
Oh no. It's moving for me. You're moving.
There you go.
Is it better?
You're back.
Okay. I should be the only one pulling internet in my present location. Sorry. I think that's a great question. And I think that's it. It's a lot of things. That's what's exhausting about HR. It's all the things all at once, all the time. That is what this job is. And so you've got to kind of be a little bit crazy if you want to do HR, but you have to, channel your crazy. So, a couple things. Those people they're scared, right? Because it's scary. And I to some degree, I do think that HR professionals should have some sort of licensure to advise because honestly, an HR professional, I've seen it with great intentions can kill a small business. If you don't understand wage and hour compliance and you're responsible for it and somebody gets a PAGA, that company can lose their business. They can go out of business. So I understand the fear of it, but with fear, you, I guess, eliminate the fear by making sure you're really educated and know what you're doing. And so something like your example, I agree. You don't jump to, oh my God, somebody has concerns, it's harassment, it's discrimination, call the lawyer. You bring them in and you gather information and then you build your plan. The people in that Facebook group were building a plan without knowing what the context is. And we see that a lot. Pause. Okay. Take a deep breath. What's the complaint? Well, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Well, then we can't plan for it. We don't know what it is. So there is balance, and that's where you got to be strategic. You got to be reasonable. Take your HR police hat off, and also don't put your camp counselor on because you can't go too far either. You've got to live in the middle.
Yeah. I see we have a listener, Guy. You've left some really great comments in here. So thank you for being very thorough. That HR sits at the intersection of business objectives and employee needs, ensuring the organization grows. And I think externally, or employees really see HR as on the business's side, and to an extent they are. Of course, like you just said, they're there to make sure the business continues to go forward and isn't taken out. But it's also on the employee side that you have to build that relationship where people will tell you things like, kudos to that person who wanted to make an appointment with HR and, tell her what they were observing. So I think there's a lot of management by walking around that old term that HR does not do. And then people just come with complaints, and you want them to come early, become their coach.
Yeah.
Give them advice about solving their own problems and things, and become part of the team, not sit up in your office. I'm assuming you agree with that.
I do. And a couple, one, everybody that is an employee of the company works for the company, right? So change that perspective. We're all there, but that doesn't mean we're not there to build a good culture collectively and to support each other, right? So everybody is there to do a job. And at the end of the day, we are there to do a job, every one of us. And HR does sit in the middle. And I do think it's important that you don't just sit in your office. I also think there's an important balance where you're not having an open door for every single thing people don't like. Because at the end of the day, that is not HR's role. And we aren't going to like everything. When we go to work, it's work. We're not going to play. It's work. We got to work. And sometimes we disagree. Sometimes we don't like the flavor of the coffee in the coffee maker. I mean, that's a silly example, but honestly, sometimes people complain about that stuff. That's not an HR thing. So there is a balance, but it's hard. It's hard to create that rapport with people, especially, when sometimes you have to sit in their corrective action or deliver some other unfavorable news. It's hard, but it's possible. It is doable.
Yeah. No, you got to balance that line. Well, and so does everybody. When I do my harassment prevention training, I kind of jokingly serious give the example of, as employees, if you're texting each other while you're in your jammies on a Friday night and you're, in your own homes, but that's a very casual way to talk. And then maybe it can evolve into something that would be sexual harassment. So you're an employee first, friends second. So that's a great perspective. I'm going to start saying that. Well, you're an employee too.
I mean, right? We all are.
What are some of the critical skills? Yeah, we are. What are some of the really critical skills one is be very educated in the HR space, if that's what you're going to be doing. But what are some of the other, what would you say are the top 5 critical skills a good HR person who's doing your kind of HR should have?
I think that you need to be organized. You need to be able to compartmentalize concepts. You need to have good listening skills and know where your own biases and trigger points are and things like that, because you're still a human being. And I think one of the areas that I see HR people struggle with a lot is being decisive. We joke in our team that we do DISC, and I am the only D on the team. I'm the only D. Wow. and I mean, okay, yeah, I'm the CEO. That kind of checks out. But I was an HR professional for 20 years before I was a CEO. And, there is an art to making decisions and recommendations, because we don't always make the decisions, right? We're advising, but some decisions we make. Being an art to getting to that point of decision or recommendation with, 50 to 70% of information, and then being comfortable moving forward. There's always consequences. There's always the potential that something could have been done better or that you make a mistake. But none of us are perfect. I mean, I would like to believe that I am, and I am far from it, right?
Except me. No,
except for me, except for you, right? I mean, except for anybody listening to this. But that is a real thing that I see. And I think it goes back to your example is people are scared. I think it's extremes. They're either too flippant or they're too scared to move, and there is balance. So yeah, we need more D's in HR on the DISC profile.
Yeah, and if you don't know what that means, it means you are decisive, directive. I am equally D and I. So don't ask me to do anything detailed. I don't want to. You brought up a good point that made me think of something. I wrote a blog maybe a couple months ago about kind of like the two brains of HR and kind of like you and I. And I think if, to your point earlier, if you're a generalist in an organization, then you need to be good at sort of all things. So if you're really great at the compliance stuff, how can you also be great at the culture stuff? Because it's like left brain, right brain, right? So I do think that HR can really hold the key to culture because, while yes, the CEO can certainly set the intention of the culture, many don't. Anyway, they might say they do with their core values, but there really isn't clarity on what the culture is supposed to be. So there is that other sort of mess of taking over the culture, taking control of it where you can. Is that a fair statement that they should be doing?
I mean, I see, I understand what you're saying. And I think I really don't believe that it's HR's responsibility. If you are in HR and you can affect it, and you have, in an ideal situation, you are a partner to the leadership team, right? That's also how you're effective, is you build that good rapport with them, so they know that you're balancing all interests and you've got their back and they trust you. So you can influence it at a higher level, perhaps. But like at the end of the day, if the top down doesn't care, I don't believe you can change it at the end of the day. What I would do, so when we have situations like this is where I call you, right? Because for a couple reasons, even if you have an HR generalist and they're really good at the full spectrum, there's only so much you can be effective at. And sometimes you need a different voice in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not that you can't do it. It's not that you're not capable. It's that you won't be heard the way you need to be heard. And so when it gets like behavioral, or I need the CEO to really look at things differently, then I step back into my lane, and I'm not a behavioralist, and I'm going to bring in people like Catherine, which is why we work together so well, is because I think that is separate and apart from the core responsibility of HR. But like, if you're an HR professional, and your company has a terrible culture and nobody cares, like, there's good places, So, sorry if you're that business owner, but like, it's our job.
I mean, that's what I tell on those webinars where I'm saying, people say they're tired. I'm like, then find a CEO who understands what you're capable of. You're in the wrong role. Another thing you were saying about like not making a decision, I see sometimes that facilitates a toxic work environment. So to give you an example, we often are working with the CEO and their advisor, right? Whoever that person may be. In large corporations, it might be, here's a department lead and here's their designated HR, or it might be the CEO and they've got their sort of advisor. You've got Carmen, I've got Rebecca. Sometimes that advisor unintentionally sort of has so much control over the CEO or the decision maker and if that person is not able to make decisions, like I'm just thinking of clients where like that advisor was scared of their own shadow almost. And so we couldn't, we had to like break through that and like, listen to us. You asked us to help you change and we need to make that change. Do you find that too, where sometimes the advisor to the CEO is not helping?
Fortunately, I can't think of too many examples. I mean, we definitely have had examples where you see advisors and they're kind of out of their lane, and who knows what their intentions or their reasons are for that. But I guess I'm fortunate that I haven't seen the advisor derailing so much. I mean, we have plenty of instances where the clients don't take the direction, or it takes them, unfortunately, a few times. And then like, oh, we're in trouble now. We talked about this, or, hey, your turnover hasn't slowed down. We need to look at this from the root cause. So we see that more than I think the advisor. But that's unfortunate, I would say.
Yeah, we have seen it here and there. We have ways to sort of break that down. Isolate the advisor from the CEO. listen to me. No, just kidding. Any final tips or tricks or comments for people listening about being a fantastic HR professional?
You've picked a hard career. You have. It can be very rewarding. It's so much fun to place somebody in a position and make them a job offer or give them a promotion, help somebody go on a leave to have their first baby. But on the flip side of that, it can be really, hard to exit that same person you brought into the organization, or to help somebody go through another leave that's not so fun, and to help people bicker or to stop it. I don't want to help them, but you know what I mean. And there's a lot of hats, and it is a hard career. So, I don't know why I do HR. If I'm going to be honest, I prefer dogs to people, but for some reason I'm passionate about it. So, find the good, but understand that there's going to be hard days, and find things that help you work through them and help you cope and have a good team and good mentors and external folks, because you can't vent internally, right? Yeah. But it can be very rewarding and very fun, but it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. What about, you're also a wonderful entrepreneur who's built a nationwide HR business, which I think is hard to come by. A lot of people are a solopreneur in their kind of own geographic area. So what about for HR consultants listening who maybe want to go bigger? Do you have some advice for them?
Don't do it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I think I still have a delay though. Sorry.
It's hard. It's even harder.
It's harder. It is. Now, look, do it if you have the entrepreneurial bug. That's my advice. If you really don't want to build your own business, because you are not, at a certain point, you're not practicing HR. You're growing a business. So if that speaks to you, if that fires you up, go do it. But don't do it just because. I was born with entrepreneurial spirit. My dad was a serial entrepreneur, lots of little businesses all over. And so I was always going to start a business. It just happened to be in HR, a couple other things. But, only do it if that really speaks to you. Otherwise, you can be very successful and happy being an independent consultant. I think some of my fondest memories in growing Total Package has been building the rapport with the different business owners and helping them grow or sell or, whatever stage they were in, and being in there and being that person. I loved that. So that's okay to continue doing. Bigger's not always better.
Yeah, that's a great point. It depends. If you want to grow that and be an entrepreneur, that's different than being an HR consultant. So if you're enjoying your HR consulting work, just do that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nancy, so much. And we thank you. There's a comment there that says good work. So good work, Nancy.
You too.
Thanks all for listening, and we'll see you next time.